Hi, this is Jay Naklis from Coleman Insights. A lot of talk in the podcasting community about this big announcement from Apple about how they're going to add HLS video on Apple Podcasts. Well, what exactly does this mean? Well, most people probably don't know that Apple Podcasts has had video since the start of podcasting in 2005. It was RSS video. And this is an improved technical experience, as we're told. It's also better for creators and advertisers because of something called dynamic ad insertion. But the real question is, can Apple be successful at video on Apple Podcasts? And clearly there's a big move towards video podcasts and consumption of video podcasts. But if we step outside of the technical question for a second, we should consider how younger consumers are or aren't using or thinking about Apple Podcasts. In our 2025 research project with Amplify Media, the state of video podcasting, we asked podcast consumers which platforms they use to get their podcasts, and then we also asked about which ones they use the most. And there's no question that three dominate this space: YouTube, Spotify, Apple. But the gap between the first two and that last one I mentioned has been growing. But right now I want to laser in on younger consumers, Gen Z, the ones aged 15 to 29. Now we know from lots of research that's out there that about 2/3 of this demographic, 15 to 29-year-olds, consume podcasts, listen or watch on at least a monthly basis. But look what happens when we asked just last year which podcast platform 15 to 29-year-olds use most often. Almost half of these podcast consumers use YouTube. About a third use Spotify. And when you get to Apple Podcasts among younger consumers, it's in the single digits, only 9%. So Apple clearly had to make these changes. They had to get more aggressive in video. But for them to be successful, the challenge is much deeper than a technical issue. If I'm a Gen Zer and I go to YouTube already for video, and actually not just video, there are many that use podcasts for audio and minimize. YouTube is a catch-all. Or I'm going to Spotify for audio and maybe sometimes video. Well, what's going to make me open up the Apple Podcasts app? If I'm a Gen Zer, do I even know that that's native on my iPhone? So some of it is I need to make them aware that it's there. And then the larger point is, what's the point of differentiation? What is the thing that will get me to use Apple Podcasts for my podcast consumption above these other two platforms that I'm already using? If it's something so special in the technical experience, you can't just do it, you have to tell them. And you have to convince them why it's better. Or if there's something else that makes it special, or something you want to position as special, again, that is a marketing opportunity and challenge. But ultimately, that gap between Apple and YouTube and Spotify is only going to be filled with a very successful marketing and positioning campaign to get those consumers to visit Apple Podcasts for their podcast consumption. I wrote a full blog on this topic, and you can find it at our website, colemaninsights.com.